So, like, when you guys are on holidays, are you still actually writing any songs, or is it a put down the instruments, don't think about music, and go and play chess?
Well, no, when your life's so involved in music, you can't do that. I mean, where I took time off, I was kind of doing a few remixes and stuff for people, and I was DJing a bit and things like that. So you're always constantly, thinking about music and what the possibilities are. And the great thing about the internet as well is that you can send ideas to each other. If Gary was writing, he'd write an idea on acoustic guitar and put a small vocal line to it and email it to you, and you're like, oh, right, okay, I see what you've done there. So it almost becomes like musical Chinese whispers sometimes. Mm-hmm. So you already have little ideas of your own because you're already feeding off of somebody else, and it goes round. So that was an interest. We sort of did that on this record where we were in touch with each other via email and already thinking about songs before we went into writing, which we did in a small cottage outside Galway for, I think it was 6 weeks, before we actually thought we were ready to go into the studio, because there's no point going into the studio and thinking it's all going to happen, so and the reason for doing that was to reconvene and to live as a gang again, and get used to each other's quirks and bad habits.
Yeah,
I'm guilty of a lot of them. But, so
you're the guy who takes the dump on the tour bus, isn't it?
No, that's banned. I think you can get hanged before that and stuff. Yeah, you could. No, you're not allowed to do that. No, that's no.
This record to me seems a little bit dreamier than other ones that you've done before.
Well, yeah, I guess there's a lot of these moments in it, and sort of moments of wondering and stuff. Especially in lots of Gary's lyrics. The sort of understanding of the greater world without being too cosmic about it. There is that as well, but there's harder edges in that record as well, and it's just like the last one. It's about light and shade, and dark and light and things like that. You have to balance them, but. We were all in a pretty good place. When you're writing the record. Which has been different from the past because there's been little bits of tension and things like that. Not in a band way, but just tensions as well. I think that's why. Well, here's another one. You can do a little bit of editing to make this more sense. The first part of the record we wrote in Westmeath in Ireland, basically on a farmhouse. So you're in the middle of nowhere. You're woken up by cows mooing and stuff like that. It's very idyllic. And we did 6 weeks, and we did as much as we could there. I think it was 7 weeks actually. I think we lost a week because Gary's birthday was 1 week, and we all got drunk and lost all interest in everything, life itself. Yeah. Joke, of course.
You become a rock star, and suddenly your birthday celebrations last a week.
Yeah,
I'm going to join your band.
Yeah. And then I think to create that the sort of the sword going through it was we picked up tools, and we went to Lahanza studio in Berlin to finish the record there. That's where like Iggy Pop and David Bowie and U2 all recorded and stuff. So just to create that little bit of a little bit of tension that's created by being in a city centre, and especially as modern a city as Berlin, and a city that has so much modern history attached to it. It just created a different edge the way we were waking up in the morning and thinking about going to the studio, and these all things make a difference in what you're doing.
Were you at the risk of sounding all spiritual and cosmic and all of that? Were you trying to channel David Bowie and Iggy Pop and all of that?
I'd like to think there was possibly a ghost in the machine and stuff that kind of over that sneaked its way into a few of the songs, especially on maybe like the Lightning Strike and stuff. I think Daybreak on that. I think that has some glimpses of things like Heroes and stuff like that. And so Yeah, you can't help but thinking about what songs came out of that studio and things like that, and perhaps the hijinks that happened in these studios as well. So it was quite a very interesting place to be. And Berlin was an amazing city as well. I'd go back there in a flash. Fantastic place.
Well, I assume you've been there before.
Well, we've done gigs before, and when you're on tour, you don't get a lot of time to sometimes see there. But we were there for almost a month. So it was I would get up in the morning and get on the U-Bahn and go to different parts of the city and go, right, this is blah blah blah, and you get a real sense of a place then.
Yeah, right.
Rather than just steaming through on your big stupid bus.